Savior. All the day. This is my story. This is my story. This is my story. Praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior, praising my Savior, praising my Savior. All the day long, I'll be praising my Savior, praising my Savior, praising my Savior all the day long. My fate has found a resting place, not in device, no creed. I trust the living one. His wounds for me shall bleed. My fate has found my
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for them. Thank you all so much for joining us once again tonight. It's big conversations about Ghana, about building a great and a strong nation. And if you have been with us from the beginning, in the first conversation, we looked at building a critical mass. The idea being that if we found, almost like what the angel and Abraham discussed, if you found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who are willing to make a difference, can they change this country? And it was quite interesting in that conversation. Last week, we looked at the power of values. What will you do or not do in pursuing the vision that you have? I've been waiting for today's conversation for a while because I've known today's speaker for, is it 20 years? For 20 years, or 22 actually. When was 9/11? What year? 2001. Okay, so 23 years thereabouts. But I've known him for all these years, and I have come to respect him very deeply because even at the time when 23 years ago or so, whatever it was, he still had footprints across the African continent at the time. And it was in a program, a business program that had leaders from various industries. And I loved it because there were times when the lecturer trying to teach us would be himself or herself intimidated by the quality of conversation that was being generated around the subject matter. And I recall one day a lecturer confessing that from the level that you guys are pitching this conversation, if you put me in practice, I can't implement what I'm teaching. But just for saying that, the whole class marked down the lecturer, and the next course, he was changed. The next class, our lecturer had been changed. Because that was the time when Professor Stephen Adair was rector. And once the lecturer said he could not implement his ideas, he had to be sacked or changed. But those were very interesting times also because we formed very priceless relationships that are active till today. And that's one big lesson for all of us, that in the journey of your life, you will meet significant people and keep those relationships for life. Tell somebody for life. So it wasn't very difficult for someone that speaks across the world in different countries for me to call him and say, David, swing by church and speak for us in our Ghana month. And he said, why not? Just 2 words, why not? Please appreciate our friend for being here today. So our speaker for tonight will talk about the role of good governance. And I'm excited because it's a very big and heavy subject. And I would like to welcome all those joining us online because today will set the agenda in terms of thinking about what kind of leadership or governance do we need to be able to build a great nation, and by extension, our homes, our businesses, our lives, for that matter. David Ofosu-Dorte is the senior partner, executive chairman, and co-founder of AB and David Africa. It's called AB and David Law and also AB and David Africa. He has footprints in over 24 African countries with the operation that he has. And anytime I Google the top lawyers in Africa and I see his name, I feel like writing that, oh, I know him personally. But David is a very well-known speaker across the world on various continents. He has expertise in different areas, in construction, in transport and logistics, in arbitration, and he gets to be pulled in different directions, especially also in the area of governance. But I call him a friend and a brother. So New Wine Temple and our friends joining us across the world, help me welcome my dear friend, David Ofosu-Dorte. Let's put our hands together as he comes.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And I'm happy to be here when Albert asked me to speak. As he said, I said, why not? This is the second time I'm actually speaking at one of your fora. I think the first one was at the Central Temple, when I spoke about Africa Free Trade Agreement, one of the things that I helped bring the private sector on board. But today we are talking about, is he displaying the slides? Oh, okay. Let me move this way. It will make it easier. So, we're talking about good governance. And good governance is something that we must all be interested in, as Reverend Albert said. Very often we tend to forget as citizens that what we do individually is part of what makes the nation as a whole. Incidentally, just last week I was having this conversation, and I was taking a look at one of the publications that people normally look up to, the Afrobarometer report, for those of you who follow it. And I took a look at a previous edition, I think a couple of years ago, which showed 23 or so recommendations that the society was making as things that should be done to improve the economy. And all the 23 were things that had been blamed on politicians, or things that politicians were supposed to do. The interesting relation I drew was that it did not seem to me that the ordinary people thought that apart from the politicians, they also had something to do. So it was as if everything was blamed on leaders. Now, that is quite revealing to me, because when we talk about governance, it comes in different angles. And I belong to something called the Fayol School, who believes that governance and management occurs everywhere. It occurs in our own homes. In our own homes, we are managing things, and we are leaders in our own right. In our own schools, in churches, etc. The second thing we forget, which is interesting that we don't pay attention to, is that when we talk about economic growth, and I notice your theme generally is great and strong. When we talk about economic growth, we are talking about the collection of all our growth. So if we talk about GDP as an example, and I wanted to find out the GDP of this room, it is simply the wealth of everybody in this room put together that determines the GDP of New Wine Chapel. That's exactly what it is. So if, for example, everybody in this room had only 1,000 Ghana cedis this year, and we managed to increase our production and we got 1,100 each, our GDP will have grown by 10%. But if we worked hard and we all managed to increase it to 1,200, it will have been 20%. That's exactly what it is. So we, as individuals, collectively, are a significant contribution or a contributor to how we grow. It doesn't mean I don't blame politicians. For those of you who know me, I blame them a lot. Okay, for those of you who know me, I blame them a lot, because I tend to blame leadership for a lot of things. And when I say leadership, I mean those who have put themselves in charge. But I also recognize that we are all leaders. So as I blame them, I try to check myself whether or not in my own leadership role in my small corner, I'm doing the right thing. And whether I'm constantly growing for want of a better word, my GDP. Is my own business constantly growing? Is it improving? Am I doing things which I'm criticizing other people for? So when I talk about governance, I'm talking about not governance only at the national level, but at the collective level. And I wanted to set that tone before we move on. Now, so every society, every organization, every country, every group of people you put together may have one thing they want to achieve. They may have a vision, etc. They may have a mission, what they want to achieve. At a specific point in time, they may have goals, they may have objectives, etc. But those things get achieved only when somebody is leading the governance of it. Because if it's not governed or not led and coordinated properly, then it is difficult to see that it's achieved, because everybody will go in his own direction. And it is to that extent that governance itself is a topic of interest, and good governance, for that matter, has to be taken seriously. Now, we will be dealing with what we call good governance. I mean, people have different definitions of it. For the purpose of this discussion, I would like to be guided by the UN guidance on what good governance is. So at least it sets the tone for what of the things that we can be looking at. Now, if I show this screen and I ask you to pick who is the most powerful person on this screen, people will have different reasons. But you may find that the person you may pick as the most powerful person may not necessarily be the president. It depends on where you are choosing, the factors that influence your choosing. And I've asked this question several times. Let's just say, for example, that the president of Ghana led the passing of a law which said that nobody can bring polythene bags into Ghana, which is what we have in Rwanda. And I've asked this question in public several times. And let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that Otumfuo Asantehene arrived at Kotoka International Airport personally carrying 2 polythene bags. Do you know any immigration officer or customer who can seize those polythene bags from him? I don't want you to give me the answer. But it will illustrate the distinction between authority and power. So authority may be somebody who legally is empowered to do something, but power may be somebody who, whether he has the authority or not, commands some following and commands obedience, or is feared in one way or the other. And these things affect how we see leadership and the fact that we see leaders as those who are governing. There are times that those who are actually influencing things are not even leading, but they are influencing change, not necessarily from the front or from the back, and we will talk about that as I go along. Or if I were to put somebody on this screen who is just popular, and as a result of what that person does, it influences society, he or she may be the one who directs people's mind as to which leader they should even choose. Now, all those people play a role in governance, but the person who may be legally in charge to govern may somebody who may be a politician for that matter. And I want to set this background so that we have the conversation guided in that respect. Now, society is often or is always led by somebody or some people, either at the top or at the various places. One very important thing about society that is always important to check is those who have charisma. And charisma is a very important part of leadership. For those who have charisma, there's the danger that when the charismatic person does not also build institutions, he may either lead to the society to a certain point and create misgovernance because of the charisma, or by the time that charismatic person is not there, the society itself will actually start to disintegrate. And there are several examples of that. But for a society to be stable, it is important that we have institutions, even if people are charismatic and they are leading it. And the institutions that we put in place are those that help create stability in society. And they are the ones around which good governance is often. Now, the reason why that is important is that in the absence of that, then every decision is made as a result of the idea of the charismatic person. Now, take somebody like Hitler. Now, there is a bad side of Hitler. But the less talked about side of Hitler is that he was an extremely charismatic person. Extremely. So charismatic that in his young days in school, when he is speaking, students tend to surround him. But we all know what he did to the world. What charisma can do, to the world. And there are those who, for example, have used charisma and gotten 960 people to drink poison and go to die as a result of the ability to command. So that doesn't sound to us as an example of good governance, because these people abuse their leadership in a way that wasn't good for the society. And that is why we must always be looking at tenets of good governance. And when we talk about good governance, it's not only at the government level, as I indicated, whether education, religion, family, etc. Because we are constantly being faced with one way or the other the need to make a decision. So now let's look at what I consider as a guide, and I said I was going to use the UN principles. Now, so according to the UN, these are tenets of good governance. One is where the governance system evolves on a consensus. In other words, it doesn't matter where the governance is taking place. In my organization, and I like to use myself as an example, do we build consensus? And how do we do that? Yes, I live by that example. So every year, at the beginning of the year, we will prepare our plan for the year. And the plan will be based on the vision we have set over the next 5 years or 3 years or whatever period that we have set the vision. And each person contributes to that attainment of the objectives, because we believe that if people see that the suggestions they make are part of the objectives we are attaining for the year, they are likely to be more devoted to it. So we build a consensus. We do it through what we call practice groups. Each practice group come up with its own ideas, and before they come up with the ideas, they actually get it from the members of the practice group. So out of, if you take the Ghana office, for example, where we are about 70 people, 50 of whom are lawyers, each of these persons, both lawyers and non-lawyers, are contributing to the ideas for what we will do for the rest of the year. And every month, somebody publishes whether what you said you will do, you have done it. And if you haven't done it, when are you doing it? That takes you to the point of accountable. Accountable and responsive on that screen refers to people who are responsible to the constituents who they represent and accounts to them. So it's not like making promises or taking the suggestions of people and going to sleep. I mean, I am noted for criticizing politicians a lot. And one of the things I tweet about and I say often is that I'm a very optimistic person, perpetually optimistic. But when it comes to dealing with promises of politicians, I'm pessimistic. It's not because I'm a pessimist, but I distinguish between optimism and empty optimism. Optimism is that which you are doing something about every day. So Reverend Albert calls me, David, we have a practical Christian hangout. We want you to speak on a certain date. When? Let us check. That call is doing something about the promise to have practical Christian hangout. We didn't agree on the date. The next time, Charlie, are you traveling or you are in town? Okay, let me get back to you. Something has been done. The next time, 20th. Oh, okay, can we change because I'm traveling? No, I've canceled it. Then 20th, then it happens. The single call is the step towards doing something. Empty optimism is where people make promise and do nothing about it at all and expect that suddenly some miracle will happen based on what. If you are not taking a step towards it, I am pessimistic about that. Because I don't have to follow you just because you made a promise when you are doing nothing about it. I need to see the example. Yeah. So every single month, somebody checks, have you done this? And at the middle of the year, we also meet in what we call media review and check what we have done in the half of the year and how you have to do to actually. So that involves everybody in the organization. And we don't do this only in Ghana. We do this across Africa. Incidentally, next week I'll be in Kampala. All the leaders of the firm across the continent will be meeting in Kampala for 3 days, looking at what we have done throughout the year last year, what to do, what changes to make. That, to me, is about consensus building from all the regions, and that's the only way you can put people together and let them feel a part of it. And making sure that it is participatory. When he says participatory, everybody is participating in it. It's not just word of mouth. And follow rule of law. Follow rule of law means that you don't just do things and disregard the system. Rule of law to me is not simply what has been written and passed by Parliament. So in my office, everybody signs in when you come. It's an attendance computer. You just sign in, I arrive at this time, etc., etc. I sign in. I'm the founder of the organization. I don't come and pass and say I'm founder, so I don't sign attendance book. If I send somebody to go and do something for me which is personal, I take money out of my pocket. If it's for the organization, he goes to the accountant to take interest. I practice that. That is rule of law in my own little way. If you don't learn to do that, you are not disciplined enough to be able to manage an organization, because you should be able to distinguish yourself from the organization. And every single person who joins the organization must come through a certain system that has been put in place, and we will obey it. That is what makes organizations very stable. So if you know that and you are practicing that, then you have every moral right to criticize a politician who is not doing that. And I say that without mentioning words whatsoever, because I know what I do and I stick to it. It also helps make you effective and efficient. Now, there is a big distinction between effective and efficient. And people mix up the two. Efficient simply means that you can utilize the least amount of resources to achieve a goal. But effective actually means you are achieving the goal. Because if I utilize the least amount of resources, but I don't achieve the goal, what is the purpose? I mean, one management expert, Peter Drucker, said something I like repeating. He says, there is nothing as useless as doing so well, that which should not be done at all. And there are a lot of them happening around here. Doing very, very well, something that we should not even be doing in the first place. So for me, personally, it's not every news I listen to. There are some things I'm listening to and I'm like, this is a complete waste of my time, and I don't tune off from there. So I'll use this guide as we go along. Now, irrespective of whatever organization that we lead, home, church, the nation, etc., the most important thing is the human factor. That's the most important thing. Because without the human factor, nothing else matters. Now, I used to drive a particular car brand. I'm sure Albert knows it. If I mention the brand, you may know. I love that brand so much that I bought 4 of them in a trot. Then I stopped driving that brand. And a lot of people were like, what happened? Now that particular brand, and I'm not surprised that the franchise is dead in Ghana. Their workshop was so good. Even the oil is serviced. You can see machines. This is way back in the 2000s and the rest. Everything is perfect. But I took my car to the workshop. It's coming out and the engine is falling. And I called my friend and said, what's happening here? They forgot to tighten the screws under the engine seat. Next time something has happened, it went on, and I wasn't the only person. People kept complaining, and I stopped using the brand. When I stopped using the brand, 2 years later, one day I got a call from somebody at the desk and said, when is your car coming for servicing? I'm like, seriously? You don't even know that I have stopped you coming for servicing for 2 years. Who is checking what at this organization? Then that particular company sold 2 cars, 2 types of cars. So one day, one called me, and let me call it, let's say car A, and then car B. Car A is what I've stopped driving. Car B agent calls me and says, so we want to sell you car B. And I said, oh, your company, they were so bad I've stopped driving car A. He said, oh, that's the car A people. We B people are. Do you understand what I mean? It's like somebody criticized ICGC and you say, oh, but that's New Wine Temple. As for we as Central, we are different. That's ICGC. Do you understand? We are one. So an organization consists of human beings, and the human beings must understand that it is the human factor, no matter how good machines you have, that actually determines the success of the organization. And it is that human factor that does the governance. And in fact, that human factor can even assign the role. Reverend Albert can assign his role, but he cannot assign the responsibility for the action that comes out of that role. And it's very important. And I always say that a leader should not confuse himself with a follower. I mean, I'm not a reverend, but I see several examples in the Bible that if leaders were classified as same, then probably Moses would have reached Canaan. The mistakes of a leader, in my view, are a very serious one. But because we are all leaders, we only rise to great leadership by leading in small, small ways in a very organized way that makes us very good in our governance in terms of the responsibility. So the human factor is extremely important in what we do. Now, I hear people talk a lot about values, etc., etc. I talk about them too. But personally, I do tell people that as much as possible, I talk less about values and I talk more about principles. There are certain principles I live by. I don't know whether people call them values or not, but I prefer to stick to more principles than values. The reason is that values tend to, at times, to be cliche. It tends to be things that at a certain point in time has become fashion. Now, let me give an example which may sound controversial. It doesn't tell you where I stand or where I don't stand. For some certain societies, LGBTQ is value. It's a value of freedom. For another group of people, that is not value. So are their values universal? I am not so sure, depending on where you stand. And it is important that as a society, we have principles. Now, principles are very important because if you sacrifice principle, it tends to abandon principles generally. So I very, very fixated about principles. And a lot of these principles that I follow either from the Bible, from some book written by some wise person, or from some things I have developed myself from experience, and I stick to them. 90% of it follow values, but it's not everything of it that follow values to me. I will give one of it that may surprise you, and along the line I may show it on there. I don't believe, for example, in the so-called value of life-work balance. I think it's a very, very wrong concept, destroying our youth. I think it's one of the most either misunderstood, or whoever created that concept didn't get it right. So far as I'm concerned, life cannot be balanced with work, and work cannot be balanced with life. You will lead a balanced life, not work and life. I lead a balanced life. What do I mean by that? As a human being, I am a father, or a mother, or a child, or a churchgoer, or a lawyer, or a worker. You are many, many things, all of which you must balance. The idea about life-work balance, which is a big value people preach, often tend to create in the minds of our youth that work can end at 5 and life begins. And some have taken it to the extent that when they close at 5 and they go, quote and unquote, chilling, that is life. I had occasion to speak to a group of young people, and a young lawyer was sitting in front of me. This was not a lawyer in my firm. Another law firm invited me to talk to their people and motivate them. I do that a lot. And I asked one young guy, what is your typical daily life? I asked about 5 people. And this gentleman, from work to bed, and I asked him why. Where is your mother? Do you live with your mother? He said, no. When was the last time you visited your mother? Has not. Where is your mother? Is in Kumasi. Why haven't you been to Kumasi? Because of work. I'm like, God forbid, what if you heard your mother is dead? And he was looking at me. I said, visiting your mother is an important part of your life. But do you chill? Do you balance? Yes, he had been to the club, boys, several times. And he called that life. But visiting the mother is not part of life. We must be preaching about balancing life in all aspects. So the cliches people create tend to temporarily create a certain value in the minds of people for a moment in time where it makes them believe that they are following values. And without checking it, and especially for Christians, we should check whether or not it even meets Christian principles. And I say that I'm not afraid to challenge the the popular order if I think it's wrong and doesn't meet my principles. So I thought I should talk about that. And all these issues, accountability, etc., etc., if it is posited in principles, then I believe, because it's steep. And if it comes from your heart, you live by it, and it's almost effortless. And it's important we think about governance from that angle. Because it is these deep-seated beliefs that drives our behavior. Now, let's come to the Ghanaian contest. And I know some people are online. I don't know whether they are all Ghanaians, but I particularly would like to talk the Ghanaian contest. Because every society is defined by its experiences. I think every human being is a collection of his or her experiences. Let's look at what has happened to the Ghanaian. So, for many years, we were enslaved. In fact, the first slaves to the America, which landed at a place called Jamestown, were shipped from Jamestown in Accra in 1619. That's a fact. And docked at Jamestown in America. That was 400 years ago. Now, how were these people shipped? They were sold by our chiefs, the very people we carry on our shoulders. I'm not a fan of chiefs. And for the avoidance of doubt, I come from a royal house, both father and mother. My mother was a queen mother, and my father abdicated the throne. I've been approached several times to be a chief, and I say I don't want to go anywhere near it. So far as I'm concerned, the institution needs to reform. I'm not saying they should abandon it, but it should reform drastically. And I don't believe in people being carried in palanquin. It's not good governance to me. There is nothing good governance about carrying one person on your shoulder, so far as I'm concerned. So I say it as it is. And there is nothing cultural about 4 people carrying one person on their shoulder. There's nothing cultural. In fact, the French people used to do it until Pascal invented the chariot. So chiefs should learn to sit in some car and be driven, so far as I'm concerned. Anyway, but these chiefs sold us before we were raided. It is true that some of the slaves were raised, but they were first sold. Who were sold? The Nkwa were sold. They were slaves. When a society distinguishes its people from those who are royal and blood runs through them, and from those who are slaves, it doesn't matter how strong the people are, they will be sold. Remember, Africa sold its strongest people. We didn't sell the weak. The slave buyers didn't buy the weak. They didn't raid the weak. By the time they came with the guns, they were looking for the strong, because in those days, the Industrial Revolution had not begun, and they were looking for people who were strong to build their cities. That's what we did. So our divisiveness between tribes, clans, is what made us sell others when one tribe had conquered the other, before the white man, for want of a better word, started raiding us. Then colonialism. In 1884, a group of Europeans with other people observing decided to colonize us when slavery was about to end. How did they do the colonization? They agreed that they will colonize us through what is called divide and rule. A conscious effort to divide us. That's so far as they are concerned, the more you divide them, the easier they become. Don't we all know unity is strength? We know. So when a group of people divide you, they can colonize you for 200 years. And therefore, I tell people, if after 200 years of slavery, and if after 200 years of colonialism, you still believe in division, then I don't have any words for you. You just don't have wisdom. Because unity is the most important factor for a nation's strength and good governance. It is. If you don't understand that, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how much you try. And I will give you real life examples. I gave a lecture recently on what I call the Common Manifesto. One of my goals is to try and put it together. It's a 30-point guide as to the most important things that we must unite on. I'll just give you one. IMF. Why can't NDC and MPP come around and say, how do we not go to IMF? Simple. And let's agree that these are the things how not to go to IMF. Or how don't they sit down and say, how do we go to IMF? I don't care whether they agree or they disagree, but there are some things which are common. But one person criticizes the other for going to IMF, and the other person supports, and he changes and all the rest. As a divided society, when you are divided, your enemies get you more. They enslave you or colonize you. That's what is happening. So unity is a very important part of good governance. Now, what has happened is that from colonialism, chieftaincy, to colonialism, to enslavement, then we move to freedom, then we move to dictatorship, then we move to military dictatorship, then we move to what I call multi-party majoritarianism. What does it mean? It simply means you have a system where once you win election, whatever you say is right. Some of us get invited by both political sides all the time. And some of us have decided that it is part of good governance not to join a political party. That's my part of good governance. It is part that some people must stay in the middle, think freely, and tell it as it is. It's part of my contribution to good governance because I'm part of the contributors to the GDP of this nation. And I pay tax. And if you care to know, I criticize GRA openly and boldly. They've audited my office since 2011 every year. And I'm not afraid. I'm always expecting them. Because I pay tax and because I respect paying tax, I should be able to say freely. If you don't pay tax, then you can't criticize them. I've even taken them to court before. All right. Now, that majoritarianism in the midst of military coups, etc., all together from slavery has created a mindset. And this is very important. It's a mindset we have created. Now, the Bible says in Proverbs 23, I think, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. As a nation thinketh, so it is. There's a Ghanaian way of thinking. And unless we understand that we need to change that mindset, everything we do, we'll be touting corporate governance, good governance, etc., and we'll be doing the wrong thing. Because our collective mindset as a society determines our attitude. It determines our behavior. It determines the actions we take. And it determines whether we succeed or not. So it's important that we address the human factor and address the mindset of the society. I'll just give you one or two examples. We are not a confident people at all. We are a very not confident people. And if we are not confident, then how do you achieve your goals when you lack confidence? Have you not seen a situation where a Ghanaian has made a suggestion to his fellow Ghanaian, and he doubts it. Then a white man makes the same suggestion, and he agrees. It's an example of lack of confidence. He just doesn't have confidence. I don't know how many of you know how much I've campaigned since 2010 for Ghana to brand itself as center of the world. Just so you know, I started a campaign. It's not like you can Google it. Luckily, in 2017, I think the current vice president started talking about it. This current government has done much more about it than the previous government. Hopefully, we will do much more. I have scripts about it, videos, what we can do with it. And something I've said over and over. Whether you like it or... And when I started talking about that idea, I was shocked what I found. I found out that we actually, as a nation, once decided how to brand ourselves in our governance. And there was a whole debate. We borrowed over $200 million from the World Bank to brand ourselves as the gateway. Now, Ghana is actually at the last land before the Greenwich Meridian enters the sea. From Ghana, the Greenwich Meridian goes straight to the Antarctica. We are exactly 5 degrees above the equator. We are not on the equator. But it is the last land where the equator and the Greenwich Meridian almost intersect. So it is at the center of the world. It doesn't end there. There are naval ships which actually come to our shores once every year to perform ceremonies because it's the only place you can be in the East and Western Hemisphere at the same time. There are 5,428 vessels crossing our coast every year because of our location. Now, if a nation which God puts at the center of the world decides to call itself the gateway and borrow 200 million for gateway, there is something wrong here. You don't have to mince words about that. There is something wrong here. If God puts you at the gate and at the center, you decide to be the gate, you have a problem. And we borrow money to call ourselves the gate. But because some of us who preach this hasn't belonged to a political party, it doesn't make sense until you keep talking about it, and people start, and when they start talking about it, they don't even talk to you. I have just told you that this current government started doing something about it. But nobody, apart from one person, has ever approached me and asked, what is this concept about? What can we do? The person who approached me asked how we can make $3 million from it. Personally. Yes, the day somebody will call me, I can tell him who asked for that. And I told them I'm not interested. It is not because I don't want money. It is because some people must decide that the right thing must be done. It's as simple as that. That is governance to me. And it's not governance from somebody who is inside politics or is a politician. It's governance from somebody who, from wherever you are, you find yourself, you can contribute in one way or the other. Right? Okay, so we have to deal with our mindset. The mindset affects us so badly that when we even get crisis, we forget that in crisis, it's important to behave in a particular manner. Let's take COVID as a crisis, or the debt exchange as a crisis. Maintaining the status quo is important. Stopping deterioration is important. Ensuring you have recovery is important. And then taking the step to take advantage. Now, how many people have you heard who try to tell our individual businesses that it is important to go through these steps and that it is your collective production which creates the collective GDP? No, we don't. We give promises only as to what we can do. And we are not telling the people how to fish. We are not telling, the only places that they tell people what to do are in the churches. They tell them what you can do, etc. So those who are supposed to help us build our economy are not even telling the individuals how to build their own little economies. And that's an important part of the things we need to deal with. Now, we live in a world where things are changing so much. Some people say it is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now, there's competition. Things are constantly changing. There is Gen Z. Now there is AI. And AI may even take away some of the work that people are doing. Now, who is focusing on what is changing that may put some people out of work? It's part of governance. Now, we may be focusing on what happens in our companies and what if one day we wake up and we realize that every car is actually automated? What are we going to do with the taxi drivers who will not have work anymore? What about if every car becomes EV? What about the mechanics? Are we planning in our governance system and therefore training them as to how to transit to EV vehicles, etc.? These are some of the things that we ought to be thinking about as a people. Because in the 21st century, like always, there's always a cycle in everything we do, whether in business or in private. Slave trade at some point was what made people rich. Colonialism at some point was what made people rich. Information age made people rich. Manufacturing made people rich. Today, AI will make people rich. EV vehicles will make people rich. In those changing times where change is constant, it is only your governance system backed or driven more by your own mindset which keeps society stable. And it is important that we look at it from that angle, both from the national point of view and from our individual point of view. So it's important that we don't just use words like honesty, integrity, respect, etc., etc. It is important that we live by it. We must live by it. And at times, the way we don't live by it is just because we think we occupy certain positions and we are too important to live by those things. Before I conclude, I'll be telling you what I consider as the three most important things that every leader who wants good governance should be careful about and try to live by. So we have a fast-changing business ecosystem, and even among Christians, you will find that the pressure to succeed is such that it leads us to break principles of good governance in order that we may be able to show off that we have succeeded. I have tweeted this before, and this is something that it takes a while for you to think about it. Adults suffer from more peer pressure than children. Think about it again. Adults tell children about peer pressure. Adults suffer more peer pressure than children. Children's peer pressure is about also feeling good that their parents are good, etc., and all the rest, and going to the club when their friends are going to the club. What about parents? Some of us force our children to do certain courses that they don't like because we were doctors or lawyers and want our children to be lawyers, so we can tell our friends that our children were lawyers. That's peer pressure. Some of us want to send our children to schools abroad when we cannot afford it because our colleagues' children are abroad. Some people want to send their children on holidays when they cannot afford it. It forces us to steal from organizations and break, corporate governance rules. Adults suffer extreme peer pressure by measuring ourselves with the wrong standards society has set for itself, and we ought to be talking about that. There is something about society I find very strange, and that works against our corporate governance system. It is a strange contrast between our, what I call the collectivistic attitude and our individualistic attitude. As a society, we are very collective. The family is together. When there's a funeral, we come together. When there's a Deba festival, we come together. So you see that the Ghanaian has an extended family system. And when I talk to people who are not Ghanaians, we explain to them how much united we are as a people. But these same people are very individualistic when it comes to success. They are the people who will steal so that their friend will not get it. They are the people who will breach the rules so that they will look the special people in the community. He alone is rich. He has a high wall around him, and it's not their neighbor. It's somebody who is poor, so they can come and worship him. So they can give him very big titles. So every morning they can give him certain titles. And even if he's an assemblyman, he wants to be called honorable. What is honorable about that? I'm still not sure. So that individualistic attitude that makes us want to stand apart destroys the very principles of corporate governance that we keep talking about. So in one breath, we want to be very, very, obey certain principles, all these things. But in another breath, we are doing the very things which is so individualistic that we want to stand apart. So we are not united. We are not collective. That is the reason why party democracy works here very, very much. Because we want to join a particular political party, make so much money, so we will be different from every other person. Except when we go to funerals, then we are collective. That is why our initiative is more towards funerals than any other thing. The funeral industry is very well advanced in Ghana. One of the few places where we can make dead bodies stand. Have you seen these days how they lay people in state? We even have some who are pounding fufu. So innovative. But we cannot innovate about how we sell coconut by the street side, because the innovation is in the wrong way. So these are the things which have created a societal mindset that we need to deal with. We are not requiring our society to stick to high standards. And standards are very important for corporate governance. If you lower standards, you are completely lowering everything and destroying it. And I'm sure we all know, they say Ghana, everything is mediocrity. We all say that. People like mediocre things. Every little thing then Ghanaians are just talking about it is like, it just reminds me of my Nigerian friend Tokubo. Many, many years ago, during the days of the so-called revolution. And then he was in Nigeria. He came to Ghana for a visit. He had lived in Ghana for a while before the Nigerians were, as it were, the aliens were moved out. And then he came back. And he opens the radio every morning and he hears this song, those days in the so-called revolutionary days. Ghana for Mujinaho. Then somebody will respond, Pinting. So this my Nigerian friend understood a bit of tree. Then he asked me, David, what is the meaning of pinting? Then I said, pinting means stable. That you are. He said, as for you Ghanaians, every little thing that you say pinting, what is pinting about here? That he couldn't appreciate what we were experiencing, that we said, pinting. So it is that standards we set which is so low. And we forget that when we achieve a little thing, that we tend to overrate it and we don't protect it, we lose it. I'll give you real life examples. When I was growing up, and I'm sure Albert can relate to this, and a few people who are close to our age in this crowd can relate to it. When I was growing for many years, Ghana was the largest cocoa producer in the world. All the way from the 60s till mid-90s, we were. Today, are we? We are supposed to be second. In fact, Ecuador is about to overtake us. Ivory Coast produces almost 3 times the cocoa we are producing. And we are still okay. In 2015, I gave a public lecture at the British Council Hall openly and said that China is producing cocoa and China's cocoa will be priced higher than ours. Somebody rubbished it. It has happened already. Now, many years ago, after 1982, Ghana was 4 times football champions of Africa. And we said nobody can win. Egypt is 7. Cameroon is 5. We are still at 4. And last week, I heard somebody say, a great football nation. You won your last cup 40 years ago, for Christ's sake. How does that make you a great football nation? You rest on your OS. Because we've not told ourselves high standards. Taking the lead is enough, but it is not enough when you don't keep leading when others are catching up. Until you understand that you have to keep leading if others are catching up, because nobody allows you to succeed alone. They will catch up with you. Success beggars success. When you succeed, people, look, I know the early days of ICGC. I listen to Reverend Rotabel almost every Sunday. How many churches haven't become like ICG or try to become? People copy. It's as simple as that. People want you to. But ICGC has continuously sought to be in the lead. That's the important thing. It is what you continuously do to keep you in the lead. Otherwise, people bypass you, and you are at 1982, and you are saying you are a great football nation. No. That is why our people have a mindset where we constantly talk about the good old days. Because it's only the old days which are good. It is important that we understand that we must constantly, and that requires setting high standard and making people trust you. Good governance requires trust. And trust is earned. Trust is earned. It's one of the topics people misunderstand. I don't know how to carry a baby who is 1 month. I'm afraid. When my wife, when she gives birth, in those days, I stopped having baby. My last born is past her 20s. But when my wife gives birth and she wants me to sit at one place, she comes unannounced and leave the baby on my lap. She knows I won't get up until she comes back. Because I'm afraid of babies. Until they're about 6 months old, that's when I feel comfortable. I kind of feel I will break them or so I'm just safe like that. In other words, you can't trust me with taking care of a 6-month-old baby. But if you gave me something else to do, to teach, you can trust me with it. Trust is earned. And it is earned by your doing something over and over again and doing it so well that people respect and believe that you will do it. We trust our legs, we can walk without thinking about it. Because when we started walking, we were falling down. We fell down, kept walking until now. We walk without thinking that we are walking. That's how trust is. If you constantly fail your promise, how am I supposed to trust you? Trust must be earned. A leader who is trusted is one who does what he or she promises to do. And it doesn't matter where you are. If you continuously do it, trust itself gives you speed and you can achieve more. That is good governance. Trust is part of it. And you have to take the human factor into account in talking about governance. It is not just rules and institutions, etc. Now, what are the things that makes us fail, especially that prevents us from having the good governance? Strangely enough, those three things are in the Bible. And I'm not telling you this because I was coming here. I was talking to Rotary Club. I'm a Rotarian. Talking to a Rotary Club about 2 months ago, and I gave exactly the same 3 slides I'm going to show you. I live by them. And it's actually, I picked it as principles I learned from Jesus Christ on the temptation. In my view, they are the 3 things which prevent people from not just doing good corporate governance, but prevent them from doing many, many good things they would like to do. And I'd like to talk about them. Now, the first one is the need to satisfy hunger at all costs. When you think that you must satisfy your hunger or your desire at all costs, you are already vulnerable and you can break every principle. Let me explain that. Hunger is not just the fact that you have not eaten, but hunger is everything you test after, everything you desire so much. And if you desire it so much that you will do everything to get it, it has already become your God. You have already sacrificed God in desire for that thing. I live by that principle. I told you I live by principles. There is nothing that I desire so much that I will achieve it at all costs. The at all costs is a problem for me. You must achieve it ethically. You must achieve it without stepping on people's toes. You must achieve it without killing people. You must achieve it without doing things which are not good governance. Do I have examples? Yes. And I've said this story before. I gave evidence before the Judgment Death Commission twice when it was set up, because somebody asked me to write the wrong opinion so that he will get 11 million euro. When I assessed it, he only deserved 2.1 million Ghana cedis. And I even recommended that to avoid arbitration, we should add 1 million Ghana cedis to 3 million. Somebody who was the person responsible in charge actually called me and asked, why can't I add so that we can even take it to 6 million and I will get $500,000. Then they sent somebody to me in the morning that if I can do this, this is the promise. I called my driver and I came with that driver today. You can ask him. I said, you are my witness. This fine gentleman here, who is very popular, we all know. This is what he's telling me. If there is evidence to borrow to be given, you are my witness. And I told the gentleman that I like money. I'm a very ambitious person. But this is not money I will take. I've given this evidence in public and mentioned names. You can read the Justice Yawapau's report in the Judgment Death Commission. You can get more about that. When, at that time, I was broke, for want of a better word, because I was developing an office and I needed money. That is when you are tempted. And if you desire it at all costs, including the cost of taking bribe, then you will be tempted to breach good governance. That's what is important. I'll give you another example. Somebody in my office stole money. And for the avoidance of that, he was a lawyer. Now, so there are lawyers who also steal. Thieves are not only belonging to a particular profession. This particular lawyer was a thief. And before he stole, a year and a half before he stole, I was once asked to do some particular work. And I had asked for a certain amount of money, which was big. The Attorney General at that time called me and said, look, we know that you can do this work, and we know you have done it at this point. Can you give me a substantial discount in your fee? And I said, how much discount? He slashed it into 2. And I said, Honorable, let's go ahead for the sake of the nation. So I issued a new invoice. When we were called to go and pick the check a month later. This lawyer went with the accountant because he was the coordinating officer. They gave us 2 checks, one for the big sum and the other one for the half. All the 2 had warrants issued by the accountant general. Yes, I'm telling you, true story. They came to the office and I said, what happened? And I checked the procedure, the warrant had been issued, had been audited, etc. And I asked them to return the big check. This lawyer told me, no, chief. The way we suffered on this work, if you want to return it, then let's return the big one, the small one. And I said, no. I gave my word to the AG at that time, return the big check. We returned the big check, wrote a cover letter. The Minister of Finance at that time called me and said, never ever did he know that it was possible for anybody to do this. And they checked all the vouchers and everything was so clear, they couldn't have detected. Exactly 1 year later, this lawyer had stolen my own money. I fired him. Could I have fired him if I had agreed to take the other check? I would have been afraid that he would have been holding me to ransom. Many of our people who are unable to do the right thing is because they fell for temptations when they desire things at all costs. And it prevents you from having good governance. Don't desire things at all costs. Desire, be ambitious, but do it with principle. And once you do it, somehow God will bless you. I'll come back to this. Now, I think the thing, oops. Which one goes back? All right. Okay, so this is where we were. Yeah. The next one is greed. And for those who want the biblical basis for this, by the way, just remember how Jesus was tempted. He was very hungry. Didn't the devil ask him to bow before him and satisfy his hunger? You know his answer. You are in the church. I don't have to tell you the verse. Don't satisfy your hunger at all costs. You don't. Then we come to the next one, which I call greed. Greed. Now remember, when it comes to satisfy your desire at all costs, it is a desire when you don't have. The opposite of it is a desire when you already have. A desire when you already have is what is called greed. Greed is not the same as ambition. Ambition makes people strive to achieve. Greed makes people strive to prevent others from achieving. I want to repeat that. Ambition makes people strive to achieve. Greed makes people strive to prevent others from achieving. We all have our ambitions. You achieve yours, and now you want to prevent others by taking what is legitimately theirs. That is greed. Because greed makes you break all corporate governance principles. You are not transparent. You collect bribe. You do all those things so that you can have more, like I talked about earlier, and you'll be special. What did the devil tell Jesus? If you bow before me, I will give you all these big cities all around. That's exactly what makes us break good governance principles. Anytime somebody breaks good governance principles, he's either seeking to achieve something that he desires at all costs, at the risk of breaking principles, or getting to get more of what he already has. The third one is pomposity. It's abundant in this nation. Very abundant. Very highfalutin things, big titles, and all that kind of thing. You just look at titles of some of our chiefs, just by the way. It's just an example. People who think that just by some dint of some position, they should be worshipped and all that kind of thing. That pomposity itself forces us to break up corporate governance principles or good governance principles in order to display our authority and our power. If you are the Son of Man, fall and let the angels come and grab you. Do you need to show off? I am already the Son of God. Why do I need to prove it? But that is what pomposity leads us to do. And pomposity can lead to the situation where even your enemies exploit. So they will make you look very good, give you a few awards, praise you, when really they are actually undermining you, because so far as they can praise you and let you look special, and your people will worship you, you are fine. For me, these three things are the real things that causes problems when it comes to good governance. And if we can take care of these things, it doesn't matter the situation. Because no event is as important as how we react to it. And if we react to it right with the right corporate governance principles, we are likely to get the benefits of good governance principles. Good governance, and I use the UN definition, if we do it, helps us not only to boost our reputation, it improves decision making, it helps us comply, it increases, if it's unemployment, it increases retention. Look, and retention may look like only companies who are retaining. You know how many of our doctors, lawyers, architects are leaving the country? We can't retain them. And where are they going to? They are going to the land where our forefathers were enslaved. If for 400 years we sold people, we were colonized, we took our freedom, and we have misgoverned ourselves so much that our children and our experts are living to where our forefathers are enslaved. I don't need to explain it anymore. It's an example of bad governance, both at the national and at the corporate level. And it is important that all of us find a way of contributing and constantly drumming into the heads of people. I teach in a law school, and I don't mince words about whenever I get opportunity to tell people the need to do things right in our own little corners, because that way we can all collectively contribute to the collective GDP and growth of the society using good governance. Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. I have seen a standing ovation at PCH, and it's a record. David, thank you so much for brightening our evening so much. We love it here. We love to learn. We love to explore. We love to challenge ourselves. And tonight you came with a barrel full of challenges. I have a feeling that the questions that will flow tonight will be quite a lot. But let me allow David to catch his breath and take a couple of minutes before I bring him on for the questions to find out which point provoked you the most. Don't give me a small one. The one that provoked you personally the most. And in no particular order. Tell me which point really, really provoked you, made you think and think again and say there's much more that we can do. Who wants to set the ball rolling? One point that really provoked you, made you think. I have so many of them. I don't know which one to choose, because I thought I had it all covered until he came to the 3 temptations of Jesus and his big lessons from them. David, I'll ask you shortly about the common manifesto, because you said it in passing, but it caught my attention. So I'm going to come to it. But how do we internalize high standards? It's another thing that was strongly on my mind, because you made it obvious that if we keep to the low standards, we won't get anywhere. But I'm asking myself, how do we make high standards a thing? Because I've traveled to countries that a certain kind of behavior is standard. You go to, for instance, Amsterdam, and the person is riding a bicycle and does not feel ashamed at all. They can have anything in the world, but they ride bicycles. The Prime Minister is riding bicycle. But Ghana here, no way. No, you can't. So what is the one idea that really caught your attention? Anybody want to start? All right, let's start with Jeremiah. And I want 2 more. So get to the mic. One thing that really caught your attention. Go to this mic. You go to this mic. Let's hear from you. One thing that really caught your attention.
So probably on a lighter note, I mean, we grew up thinking of lawyers as dishonest people, conniving people. So it's really exciting listening to a lawyer who is committed to integrity, committed to principles. I really think that's amazing.
You get a letter from the GBA, the Ghana Bar Association. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Thank you. They said they'll bury them. Yeah, they'll bury them upside down. I have some of the greatest speakers I've traveled with on my 17-year journey, speaking to young people across this country, have been lawyers that I have personally learned from, and I hold them in very high esteem. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. That's a light one from there. Anyone else? Yes, sir. First name and what is the one lesson that is really provoking you tonight? And if you have a question, you can stand on this mic. Could you? Okay. All right, hold on. Let me make sure your mic is on, because there are so many people listening online. They can't miss a word. All right.
I was privileged to go to school with him. What caught my mind was when he talked about the way we treat leaders, chiefs in a palanquin. And when he talked about Netherlands, I put two things together. I don't know if you've seen that video, but there's a video of the Netherlands Prime Minister going to work in the morning. And he got to the gate and spilled his coffee. And the cleaners were around. But he took the mop from the cleaners and did the mopping himself. And I'm just thinking of the effect of that little experience for the cleaners and all the people who were there. So leadership is more about serving and not dominating. That's
Awesome. Thank you. David, join us here so that you can take a seat next to me and let's see if we can fill some of these thoughts. And before Jojo comes on, you mentioned, get his microphone for him. You mentioned that you get to the clocking center and you clock yourself. A system that you've built. Do you find that sometimes the people that you oversee themselves want you to pass without clocking because they say, now you how can you clock?
Yeah, I find that out and I try to let them understand. And once you build a culture in organization, it comes to stay. I mean, Manuel, who was a year ahead of me in school, has been to my office and he sees as it was the culture there. In fact, a military officer once came to my office years ago and he said, this is the only place he has gone to that he can see discipline around as a civilian environment. Now, I'll tell you a couple of stories. One of them was a lady who came to work at our reception from a different organization. She's no more with the organization. She's working with one of the banks. I hope her character has changed. This lady, one day, a gentleman who is some very elderly man who walks the street every day, and he stays in one of those rickety sheds somewhere around North Ridge, came to the office and came to ask me for money. And then he told the lady he was looking for me. And I said, what's the person? And he mentioned his name, and I said, oh, he should tell him to give me 15 minutes. I was very busy, and I'll come. So I came down, sat with the gentleman, gave him money, and I was asking him about his family and all the rest. When the gentleman left, this lady said, how do you find time for people like this? And where she worked previously, when you come to your reception, there was even no seat for you to sit, and let alone this man. And then she added, in tree. I mean, for those who don't understand tree, if she were me, there's no way she would be speaking to people like that. I mean, a person who basically was like a type palm wine tapper. And I call him palm wine tapper for a reason. Because when we took the office, there was a palm tree there. And the gentleman walked there and said, oh, he could cut the tree and produce palm wine for us. He's very old, but he still walks around every now and then, and he will pop in. And the lady didn't understand why I could be talking to a palm wine tapper. And I asked her, what is the difference between me and that palm wine tapper? He's a specialist in tapping palm wine. I'm a specialist in law. We are both specialists. And we are having a conversation. So at times, they force you to try. Those kind of people want to open the car door for you and things like that. I mean, I know one government organization where when the CEO gets there, until the door is open, he's sitting in the car. There are times security people rush to open my door. But me, I'm opening my door if you open. I mean, it's not, you shouldn't get fixated with it. It's part of our culture, and you have to recognize that. But let me tell you the flip side. I had to create a conscious effort that our office should look like Europe. And how did I do that? We had visitors coming, and these visitors were coming from Europe for a meeting. And they had set up coffee and everything for them. And I just came from upstairs, and I was going to go down and escort the people up myself. I do that at times. Then something just told me, instincts at times are very, very good. Something just told me to go to the conference room. I went there, coffee had been set and all that, and he had put this milk sachet. You know this pig milk, the sachet one that you use with your teeth for cocoa in the morning. And I'm like, why? Where's the milk jar? And we had done what we thought is a very beautiful office and all the rest. And our office reception, we fired 4 architects before we got it done. Because we wanted to have European standards. And the architect's instruction is Anybody who comes in here should feel he's in Europe. We actually made him see 4 law firms, and I said, build the same reception for us, even though it's a smaller office. We wanted to have that standard. So I couldn't believe that in that office, coffee was being served, and these visitors coming up had sachet they were going to cut with their teeth. So I quickly removed the milk from there. The meeting came. Luckily, one person said he wanted black coffee. He took the black coffee. The meeting was over. When we finished, I called them. Who put this sachet milk here? And that same lady said, oh, she realized we ran out of milk. So she ran across the street and bought that. And I said, but we have a milk jar. Why couldn't you cut it with scissors and pour it in the milk jar? She stood there. I said, okay. I called the meeting. And I said, you know something? When you come to work in the morning, think like Europe. I know when you go home, you would open the milk with your teeth. But not here. Here you can't do that, especially with visitors. You have to consciously create a culture. If you don't create that culture, it doesn't matter the strategy. I'll tell you a third example. And these things, one Oyibo, white guy, fixed the meeting with me for 8:30. Luckily, he was not a client. He came at 10:30. And I went down and I said, wasn't the meeting for 8:30? He said, yeah, but you know in Ghana. And I said, I'm not seeing you. I just came to tell you I am not seeing you. In Ghana, we also obey our time. I sacked him. He wrote an apology letter and asked for, I gave him 2 more weeks before he came back. If you keep that kind of standard, everybody respects it. But that standard doesn't mean it should be pompous enough so that you can meet a palm wine tapper. Because our society tends to want to prop you up so they can carry you on their shoulders. Those same people will drop you at the least opportunity. Just be simple. Just be yourself. That's how I see life.
Incredible. David Ofosu-Dorte. Jojo, let's hear you.
Sure. So one of the more interesting things you said was that if you take New Wine Temple right now, this room, New Wine Temple, this room, our GDP is just the wealth of every individual here. So if governance as an individual measure, right, let's call it GGP, right, gross governance product. If we look at that individual economy, you showed us 3 things not to do, 3 possible failure points for governance, right? So what are 3 things to do? What are 3 individual units of governance that people can do every day to become better at self-governance?
Now, the first one is, as much as possible, don't join politics. No, it's very important to me. I will explain why. It tends to make people lazy. I vote, and I change my party according to, what I feel at each particular point in time. But I see people see politics as their salvation, and therefore they plan their businesses around politics. I am so strict about not joining politics that in our Zambia office, one of the founding partners who chose to go into politics, we asked him to resign. That's how much I take not joining. It doesn't mean you won't take public office. If the public office is an appointment, fine. It doesn't mean I don't have. There are times I sponsor politicians who come to me and say, oh, baby, I want funds. If I have, and maybe you are campaigning for primaries. One of the people I helped recently, he lost the primaries. He wasted my money. So there's a difference between having friends as politicians and tying your business to politics. Once you decide that you are going to take responsibility for your business and you are not going to rely on a politician, you have done the very first step. Because our society tends to let us look up to certain people as their salvation. So it stops us from thinking. The second thing that comes to mind is taking responsibility. And I tweet a lot. And I think yesterday I tweeted about this. That once you take responsibility for your plight, it forces you to want to do something about it. And the more you do something about it, the higher your chances of success. But once you start giving excuses for your plight, the higher your chances of failure. So you must take responsibility that this is something you can do about it. The third, to increase your GDP. It doesn't matter the situation, and I'm talking about your GDP in quotes. Every situation, you can do something in order to improve it. If you use a God-given brain, and the brain is such that the more you use it, the more you are able to use it. So you should look at the problem and see this particular problem. how do I solve it, and how do I solve it in order to make money? Just so you know, I don't do things I don't love. And I'm a firm believer in the parable of the 5 talents. It's what somebody calls the Matthew principle. Unto him who has, more is given. And unto him who has not, even the little should be taken away from him. I believe in that principle. I didn't make it, but I live by it. Why? Because if you have a talent and you live by it and you enjoy doing it, you almost don't get tired. You are doing something you love. And that helps you to actually grow and make money from it. There are people who look for money, they've already sacrificed God. Once you are looking for money as your goal, you sacrifice God. Money is your God already. So you are not loving the things you are doing. What I'm going to say, some may not like. I don't believe in the so-called principle of self-actualization. I don't believe it. I'm sure a lot of you have heard it and you'll be so. I don't believe it. Because the self-actualization principle is a hierarchy of needs. I wrote it to pass my exam, but I don't live by it. Now, if you have a hierarchy of needs, which doesn't put love at the top, and that hierarchy of needs doesn't put love at the top, anything that doesn't put love at the top is not good for me. Because above all things, love the Lord thy God with all thy might, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I mean every word of it. If you love, I love what I'm doing, otherwise I wouldn't have come here. If you love what you are doing, somehow God blesses you with it. It doesn't matter how little it is. So if he gives you something, it's your talent, and you love it, he will add more. But if you start thinking there is money in law, let me go and do it, then you will sacrifice principle because you love money at all costs. That is why you are doing law. But if you are doing law because you love it, then God will add and you do it and it's effortless. Those are the 3 things I would think each of us should do, and we can increase what our output is based on good governance principles, and our GDP can come together.
This time I'll give you the standing ovation. I mentioned that on the 3rd of April, on the 10th of April, on the 17th of April, and on the 24th of April, we are doing 4 sessions on your God-given talent. And the opening remarks will be the remarks on which you just ended your contribution. Love what God has given you and do it well, and God will bless you. David Ofosu-Dorte, let's put our hands together. Let's hear from you, Henry. I'm loving this so much.
My name is Henry. Mr. David, you made a statement that no event is as important as how you react to it. If you could kindly throw a bit more light on it.
Yeah, I mean, events occur without your control. It is how you react to it which is important on how you survive it. So let's take COVID. Apart from hoteliers, restaurateurs, etc., those who rely on people coming out, transport operators, a lot of people, so far as I'm concerned, should have reacted in COVID in such a way that they save money. But there are some people who also reacted in a way that they lost money. So the event itself, you don't control. We don't control what happens, but we control how we react to it. I was talking to one of my colleagues in the office, and as she was in my office showing me some work, somebody called me on the other line, and I knew it was a client of ours we are both working for, so I put it on speaker. And it was because I had something I was doing on the computer and I wanted to listen. As the guy is talking to me, there is some noise at the other end of the phone. Do you understand? Some kind of creaking noise, etc. And she's standing there saying, I should tell the guy that the noise is very annoying and very annoying. I didn't mind her. I finished my conversation. The client gave us new instructions. I got new work. Then when I finished, and I asked her, why are you so stressed about the creaking noise at the other end? And she's like, it's very annoying. And I said, I don't sweat small stuff. I don't. And I told her that when I was growing up, at some point, life was so difficult, I had to be a DJ. I was a DJ at some point to earn a living. Yeah, I have a very checkered history. If I tell you my story here, you'll be surprised. And I think he interviewed me once, and I mentioned a couple of those things. In my DJ days, I could sleep in the disco. And I mean that when it was not my turn to be at the turntable, I sleep. I can shut the noise around the world. And why should somebody's creaking noise at the other end disturb me? It is you who is reacting to it. I don't control his creaking noise. So I will not allow that to upset me. If it upsets me, it upsets the rest of my day. You should limit the number of things that upset you. That's the problem people have. I know people who let's assume they don't like a particular politician. He comes and they are so angry. They want to shut the TV, etc. Just turn it off quietly and continue your work. Why should that upset you? You know, the problem is that we forget that when we react wrongly, it's coming from inside us, right? Anything from inside you is greater than that which is outside in the world. Because everything emanates from inside us. Don't let things from outside go inside you. It is things from inside you which must come outside. So the events which are outside, how you react to it is from inside. Pause calmly. What do I do about this situation? Can I help it? Can't I help it? Once in a while you get angry. If you get angry, remember after a few moments, just calm down and do something about it. Otherwise, society will keep turning you around. There is something called agenda setting that you must understand. And many people miss it. Many people are victims of other people. And I say that where you don't have strategy, you're already part of somebody's strategy. Whenever I teach strategy, I use an exercise. And I'll ask the class, just assume you are a choir. You can assume that right now. And I say, you are a choir. I want us to have choir practice tomorrow. What time should we have it? Anytime I do that exercise, somebody shoots up the hand. Let's say 4 p.m. Another person says 6 a.m. Another person says 10 a.m. Then I say we should vote. Somebody wins. Then I'll ask the person who said, let's say 3 p.m. Why did you say 3? Invariably, the reason that person hurried up is because he has some other thing to do that requires that he fixes the time at 3 so that he can do that other thing. His agenda becomes the agenda of the whole choir as to when we meet. So on TV, on radio, in society, in the office, everybody is setting an agenda. If you don't react properly, you are victim of other people's agenda, tossing you left and right, and you cannot pursue your own agenda.
Wow. Last question, and then I'm going to come around after this one to close by asking you one word you are carrying away from this session. You have to have one word. Not a sentence, not an explanation, one word. Final question.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to emphasize on an issue you made about the palm wine tapper. The palm wine tapper who came to you, and there was another woman saying that why you to attend to that person. Talking about a mindset. In this aspect, how can you work out when such person is having that kind of mindset towards another person? Maybe the way you see that fellow to be is not how that fellow is thinking. So in that aspect, how will you work it out? Or let's say when you are not the type of a person you are, but people have that mindset for you, and you know you are not that type. How do you cope with it in society?
Unless you are not a Christian. I am a Christian. And I lead a very practical Christian life. Christ himself said that he was eating and drinking with tax collectors. When you say somebody is not your type, what you have done is falling for the third temptation. You have simply become pompous, and somebody is not your type. As somebody said somewhere, it's not your co-equal. So, you see?
But let's say you are not in that same class.
Yeah.
And then he has that kind of mindset.
Yes, and I'm coming to that. I'm not a palm wine tapper, but he's a palm wine tapper. Yeah. He's not a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. We both have something that we are doing. Look, there's a big man whose name I cannot mention. Very big man in this country. Very wealthy. He taught me a lesson that enhanced my understanding of humility. One day, I visited him, and he invited me to his house. He lives at somewhere around Achimota, big mansion. And then when we were going, he said he'll come and pick me in his office. The wife and the family, they invited me for lunch one Sunday. And then when we were going, he told me that on our way back, we will pass under the bridge. I don't know how to call it. It's a place called Abufu, where from Achimota somewhere you go under the Abelempe bridge. And there was this uncompleted house there. So around 4 p.m., we got there and he said exactly what I want to show you. And he parked. There's a man and his wife who were eating fufu from a bowl. And he said, anytime he passes there, and they were laughing and smiling. And these people were like people in their 50s or 60s. And this big man I'm talking about, whose wife and children had invited me, and we had eaten with fork and knife, told me that anytime he sees those people, he goes home and he keeps thinking, because he doesn't remember the last time he ate from the same bowl with his wife. And he's very rich. That man poor who lives in an uncompleted house is eating with his wife from the same food bowl and laughing. And he said he doesn't remember the last time he had a good life. Do you understand me? Happiness is not about how much you have. It is not about the status. If you tell yourself that you derive your happiness from your status, you will think other people are not your class. Everybody is a human being. And for me, it's as simple as that. That's how you have to. And you treat each human being. It's possible that if he came that day and I was very busy, I would have said, Onkombra. But if I was less busy, you will be surprised. Maybe something was going to happen in my office and God wanted him to save me by taking me away from my office. Just respect everybody. And you see, there is nobody here that God created by accident. Everybody is in life for a purpose. So once you raise yourself to that level that you think others are not your type, they don't think like you, it doesn't mean they are not human beings. Then immediately you have become pompous. Then you want to say, I'm the son of God. I will throw myself, the angels will come in. By a Christian principle, I don't do that.
Thank you.
A round of applause for David Ofosu-Dorte. David, we could actually do this the whole night and I will still be enjoying you. There's something you do. David and I had a very interesting, let me add that to the story of our history. David and I used to compete when we were in school in presentations and public speaking. And it was almost like if I ever made a presentation in school and I lost, then there's only one person responsible, and that would be David. And we love to do that together, make presentations and make interesting submissions at the MBA level. It was just quite a wonderful experience with our colleagues. I know many of our colleagues at Gimpa are watching us tonight, and a big shout out to them. But for every one of you, let me give you a chance in the next 1 minute to tell me one word that comes to your mind. I take happiness, since you ended on that note. Anybody with one word? Pomposity. And he's a lawyer, so I guess it's fair that he takes that one. Anybody else? Integrity, yes. Trust, yes. Love. You are the youngest person in the room today, aren't you? Or there's somebody younger than you? Love. Charlie,
Good
it says
governance.
forget about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the top is love. Love for the Lord and love for your neighbor. Shall I give you 5? I'll give you a gift, okay? You look like the youngest person here. Yes, Vincent?
Good governance.
Good governance. Will you put a hyphen in between them to make it one word?
Well, yeah, that'll work.
5 more. Yes, let me come this way. Yes. Oh, you're the youngest person. I didn't see you. You win, you win. You win.
Standard.
Yes. Efficiency.
Standard.
United. I hope it's not Man United. Yes. Principles. What's your one word? I love it when children come here. Those who are scientists, can you tell me when children at this age listen to things like this, does it influence them? Did you enjoy yourself? Did you enjoy yourself? What's your name? Give me 5. I like that. I like that. I love it when children come. It just makes my day. I pray that they will have a better life than us, because what they are hearing at that age, we didn't hear it at that age. It's too powerful. I love that young lady. What's your favorite word? Or give me one word from here. Excellence. Beautiful, beautiful. Always good to see you. Yes. Ambitious. Standards. Okay, let me. Bonus 2, last 2 from the middle. Yes, Barbara. Freedom. Charisma. Okay, David, your closing thoughts for us as we wrap up this session. Have you enjoyed us?
Okay, so I didn't know you were going to ask for my closing thoughts, but let me.
But have you enjoyed us?
Let me give you the closing thoughts now.
No, before you have you enjoyed this? Have you enjoyed this?
Oh, I do only things I enjoy.
Okay, so how many want to hear the story of David's life, including the DJing and the sleeping in the studio? Okay, so you promise to come back
Yes.
at a time that will suit you to come and tell the story of your life.
Yeah. And then it will be just a Q&A. So
Yeah,
I can tell my life story.
All right.
Okay.
How many of you would like to hear that? Awesome. So overwhelmingly, you will come back, David.
So, for good governance to thrive, I recommend something to you. Focus on happiness. And what I'm going to say is things I live by. When you focus on your happiness, you do the things as much as possible which make you happy. And the things which make you happy are the things that you love. Now, there are two things about love and hate. If you hate something so much, you can try to solve it. And as you solve it, it creates the things that you love. And as you solve it, you can make money. If you love things so much, you do it because when you do it, it makes you happy. And I'm a believer that God gave everybody a talent. And I think talent is one of the most misunderstood subjects. It's completely misunderstood. And let me take a couple of minutes to explain how I understand talent to you. Talent is not what you do. That will surprise many to hear that. It's never what you do. Now let's take a good footballer, and I'll use football as an illustration. And you are a dribbler, or you are a goalkeeper. The dribbler can stand in the middle of a crowd and with a number of legs, still pass the ball between the legs to get to the next person precise. He has the ability to weave through the maze. In the same football, a person who is a goalkeeper can anticipate a ball which has been kicked and dive in the direction and catch it. They are both playing football. Therefore, football cannot be their talent. The talent is what makes you do what you do. Now, if talent were to be what you do, then God will not take it away. Because if you were a good footballer, you should be able to play football after 40. So if you understand talent very well, if you are, for example, a goalkeeper who can anticipate, when you stop playing soccer, you can be on the stock exchange because you can anticipate the market. You can also be in the maze of things because with the midst of all confusion, you know how to weave through. Talent is what is driven by inside, by an innate quality. And once you follow it, it makes you happy. Then I will leave you with the words I'm going to, or the message. Because following that which makes you happy is the only thing that will prevent you from sacrificing all those principles that lead you away from good governance. If you love what you are doing, you are not doing it because of money. You are doing it because you love it. And people forget that it is not money that gives us happiness. It is happiness which gives us money. I will repeat that. I tweeted about it. It is not money that gives us happiness. It is happiness that gives us money. If you are happy about what you are doing, you will get money. I take this so seriously that in 2014, we met as partners and declared our organization as a for happiness organization. And I mean every word. That's how, we call ourselves a for happiness organization, that we exist for happiness, not for profit. But we became more profitable after we declared that. How do we live by that? Because we believe that good clients hire you when they are happy. And they are happy when the staff are happy. If you make your staff happy, your clients will be happy. And how do we translate that? We created something, for example, called Life at Work Committee in the office. A group of people who are juniors, who constantly come up with suggestions as to what will make people happy in the office. We live it. You can check. They ask questions. Recently, we created something called the Junior Management Board, where juniors who are below 30 create an alternate board, and they come to the board and tell us what they would do if they were managing this organization. It makes people feel very involved. Somehow you'll be surprised how much ideas these people bring that creates you having money. Just do what you love, be happy about it, and the money will follow. Those are my words.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. David Ofosu-Dorte, thank you so much. I appreciate him as he goes back. Wow. Thank you so much, every one of you, for coming. It's been a beautiful evening. We'll take our offering and the band will minister as we receive it.
appreciate David. If you are saturated, I'm not just blessed, I'm saturated with information and nuggets of wisdom. Kindly give me your attention for today's reminder. But Pastor, my word is pressure, peer pressure. Yes, peer pressure. We worry our children that they are being pressured, but you and I, we go through a lot of peer pressure. All right, kindly give me your attention for today's reminders. Sunday service. This Sunday is Palm Sunday. Invite friends and loved ones to church as we celebrate the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. First service is at 7:30 a.m. and second service is at 10 a.m. Our reach, we would encourage members to continually share the love of Christ by winning souls and helping to grow people in the Lord. Invite the souls who you won to church and let them experience the one big family at the New Wine Temple. Life walk, life walk, life walk. This Saturday, 23rd March, join the entire ICGC family at Christ Temple East for life walk starting at 5 a.m. Catch the bus at the New Wine Temple Church premises at 4 a.m. Next Wednesday, we are having Dr. William Otre Fimpon, who will be speaking on Wednesday on the topic, One Person Can Make a Difference. Let's welcome Pastor Albert as he takes us through the new moments, the wow moments, and close the service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a protest from our online audience that today I didn't fill their questions. And so I apologize to all our online audience. Next week, we'll feature you. But let me read one comment from Kwame, watching us from London, who says, I can listen to David Ofosu-Dorte all day. Thank you for bringing him tonight, Pastor. So David, Kwame says he can listen to you all day. I think I'll join Kwame in that one. Round of applause one more time for David. Let's see if somebody has won. Today, what are we giving out? We are giving out Petra's book, as well as the book Snakes and Ladders. So that's the gift for today. So let's see who won. Who'd like a book? All right. So the winner for today is Kweku Yabua. Kweku Yabua. Who's Kweku? All right. Kweku, you won yourself 2 books. And Kweku, stand here. Would you like a picture with David? Yes, wouldn't that be nice? So David, please do us the honor of presenting. Oh, you're actually adding, you see, bring good friends. David is adding an envelope as a gift for, please come and present, do me the honor of presenting it for me. Please come and present this for me, David. This is for the offering basket. Sorry about that. All right, thank you. So David, do the honor of presenting this for me. Thank you very much. Congratulations. God bless you. All right, so next week we're having William Ochefrimpong talking about one person can make a difference. You may never know if you'll be that way, one person who will make a big difference. So next week, please come early and be prepared for another riveting session. And next month, we'll switch to the subject of talent. Something God has given you will make you very happy and also very fulfilled. Let's rise up as we close. Let's kindly bow down our heads as we pray. Father, we thank you for what you received today. May it empower us to do extraordinarily in every area of endeavor. We thank you for David and the thoughts he shared with us today, and pray that this will be the beginning of a new beginning for every single one of us, as individuals, as families, as businesses, and as a nation. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much. God bless you and good night.